Hey, hey, hey! Welcome to ngHouston. Hello, everybody. I'm Bonnie, and we have such an exciting episode tonight. I'm very it's been crazy because everybody's coming out of the woodwork and offering to be on the panel, so we're very popular tonight. And we already have 10 people watching online, which is huge for ngHouston. I didn't mute myself. Sorry, guys. First, I want to introduce the panel, and then we're gonna jump right into our wonderful guests. I want to go with Jeffrey. Jeffrey, you are new on ngHouston. Say hello.
Hi,
Is this your
everybody.
first time on ngHouston?
Yeah, it's my first time.
Welcome, welcome. I'm
Thank
really
you.
glad that you're here. And Brad McAllister, this is not your first time on ngHouston, Brad, is it?
It is.
Is it really?
It is. This is my first NG Houston. Yeah.
That's a
So
that's a damn
glad to be
shame.
here.
We need to get you on the calendar because you could come and teach us some stuff too, but not tonight.
Oh, not tonight.
Tonight we have Wes and Jonathan from Nrwl. How are y'all doing?
Good. Thank you
Doing,
for having us.
yeah, doing
And
great.
and Wes, it is definitely not your first time on ngHouston because I knew you before you were famous, and we were friends way back before you were this narwhal big shot. Uh,
Yeah,
but it has been a really long time since you've been on the show, and I've missed you. So
yeah.
I'm glad to see you. How are you doing?
Oh, doing great. I'm glad to be back presenting and sharing with friends and seeing y'all again. So it's been a while. Been heads down working on some really cool stuff at Narwhal though. So excited to
I'm
share that.
I'm
Mhm.
I'm so excited about so many things that Narwhal's working on, and
Yeah.
they just have there's so many cool people. They're hiring more people, and all of my favorite people. Well, not all of them, but such nice people. And Jonathan, I have not met you before tonight,
Nope.
so
It's the first
I'm very
time. Yeah.
excited to meet you.
Yeah,
Any
me
friend
too.
of Wes Grimes is a friend of mine, John. Is it John or
Definitely.
Jonathan? What do we call you?
Uh John is fine. All my friends call me John, so you could go ahead and call me that.
All right.
It's just simpler. It's quicker to write as well. You have to use one hand to type that out,
So we can call him Mr. Thon.
Mr.
There you go.
John A.
Uh,
Thon.
I think I speak for all of us when I say that I'm excited about this whole NX plugin situation that you guys have going on. And I just started seeing little tidbits about it, and it was between this and the GraphQL mesh. I was like, oh, there's so much cool stuff going on. But number one, I was excited because of some of the because I think when you guys made the announcement about the NX plugins that this was something that was released, that it already came with a couple of like Manfred Steyer has one,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mhm.
so there were a few plugins that were already developed and free to use. And I was already excited about that, and so you're going to show us tonight actually how we can make our own NX plugin.
Yep. Yep. We're
Yep.
gonna walk
That's
through
going
it.
to be cool. And but
Absolutely.
you're also going to talk to us a little bit about some of the plugins that are already there available for us and like how a plugin
Yeah.
would be used. I'm so excited about. I'm just going to shut up and let you share your screen.
Okay. Cool.
Just go right in, and then
All right.
we do have people watching on, and as you guys know, anybody who's seen ngHouston before, we love beginners and questions. You're always allowed to ask questions, and we'll try to get to them. So I'm gonna watch the chat and see for questions, and also Jeffrey and Brad, I'm sure will have questions. And so here's Wes's screen.
All
All
right.
right, here
Cool.
we go.
Yeah. So we kind of did a soft launch of NX community plugins just to kind of get it out there, and we had some pieces we wanted to put in place first before we kind of made it known to everyone. And so I feel like we've kind of got those in place now. So we'll walk through that. So yeah, really we're talking about NX community plugins and harnessing the power of NX workspaces. And so just before we dive in a little bit about we kind of introduce ourselves. I'm Wes and John. We work together at Narwhal, and
Mhm.
Narwhal, we can help your team learn, grow, and be successful. And kind of our plan is we will talk through your priorities, the roadmap, any technical constraints, and help you as a client work toward your ideal end state. We can also offer training, React, Angular, NGRX. We have experts in all those areas. And then one of the kind of the unique things we do is we can embed alongside your team and help you work through your difficult challenges and kind of have that targeted training as we do it. So it's more of a partnership than us just coming in and leaving. So you hear a lot about like NX and NX console and some of our other, our new NX cloud offering that we have, but also we have a whole services side of Nrwl that we're building out as well. So before we dive in to what is an NX plugin, let's first just kind of talk through some examples of existing plugins. So you're already using them if you're using NX today, really because we have core plugins, right? And some of those are React, Next.js, Cypress, Nest, Angular, Jest, and so these are kind of when you create an NX workspace, you can add these in and start using them. And so you would have schematics or builders to allow you to build the React apps, generate React components. There's even some really cool like full stack presets you can do, where you can say, I want to generate a React front end with an Express back end, and then our plugins will kind of pull that together, even set up the proxy between the API, so that it's easy to run and develop and deploy. We wanted to take that a step further, and John can talk a little bit about it, but he did the initial work on the Create NX plugin that we'll show you in a minute, that would allow folks outside of Nrwl to start building and creating their own plugins. And so we've had the community has already kind of jumped in quickly to this, and I think we're up to 6 plugins now, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm really excited about that Angular Architects one, because if anyone who recognizes the name, that sounds a lot like Manfred Steyer, and the nerd in me, like, I'm such a big Manfred Steyer fan, so Manfred Steyer plus NX is just like, so it makes me happy. What else do you have? Do you know off the top of your head, Wes, what the other ones are? I only see 2.
Yeah, I can hop over. Can you see my browser?
I can.
All right, so go ahead and take this opportunity to demo to you this really cool web page we have now that is going to be our new community plugin browser. And so
it's nx.dev.
It's nx.dev/nx-plugins. And what this gives you is...
Y'all don't go to that website until the show's over. Stay with us.
Yeah, stay focused, yeah. So there, and we'll walk through it later, but there's a process that once you develop your plugin and you publish it to NPM, you can do a pull request to our NX repo on GitHub and get your plugin added to this list.
Devin says it's at NX10, but he'll forgive you.
Oh, Devin's listening. Hey, Devin. Devin was the first one, I believe, to release to have a plugin released, and so he's been really helpful with us as well.
You, Devin. You're the bomb, Devin.
Definitely. And so his plugin, for example, is here. We've got Manfred's, we've got Fabian has one now, and we've got some other folks that have also added their plugins. And so they do this pull request, and then it gets added, and we kind of pull it in and show it here so you can see what's available to kind of power up your NX workspace. Mm-hmm. So these are the existing ones. You can come right here. You can jump to their GitHub repo to take a look at it, to look at their README on how to use it. Like we can go to Manfred's here and then hop down into the README. Then it walks through how to do it. And really, it's just it's straightforward. It's just doing, if it's an Angular workspace, you can just do an ng add and then immediately start using the plugin in your workspace.
So Devin's is the one that
we also have commands here.
Yes, his is
Devin's. Yeah.
And then
go ahead, John.
Manfred's is the DDD is domain driven design, right? So Manfred's would actually go, and if you've read Manfred's book about architect, he's going with like enterprise architecture, which is so beautiful with NX and Angular. So that's more for architecture, and then Devin's is for Ionic and React. And then
that's correct.
Just NX serverless. We got the cloud going on. Love it.
Yep.
And I've played with. I think I've played with NX serverless already. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I think we have 2 more in the pipeline to be added. I don't remember what they are exactly, but one is to...
You can't just tease us like that, John.
Well, one was just recently added. Yeah, we could just check it out, actually.
Yeah, we'll just
Yeah,
show
you
you.
can't tell us that much and then not like follow through.
Well,
Yeah.
oh, I guess there's 3 now. So yeah, those are the ones that are coming up. One that I think is interesting is one that will migrate from Protractor to Cypress. And
Oh, thank goodness.
yeah, that one was just recently added.
When is it ready?
That's
When
cool.
can we have it?
Yeah.
That's cool. Protractor to Cypress would be amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
There are so many people, and that's Fabian did that.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
that
This
guy.
is his second one now. So he's on a roll.
We need to get him on the show. Fabian, if you're listening, you need to get on the show. We need to have him on the show. I really like that guy.
Yeah. Yeah, I like Fabian has a .NET background like me too, so we have a lot in common.
He's cool.
Good, I have some
Okay,
.NET
so
questions.
I'm sorry, we just went off the rails. You want to get back to your
Yeah.
We just got so excited,
Sure.
guys. It's not my fault.
Yeah, and these are pull requests here. We'll walk through that process in a minute. But those plugins are actually already out there and deployed. These pull requests are just there to make them discoverable on our website, as well as running the NX list command, which we'll show you in a minute. But let me go ahead and go back in here. So yeah, so those are some examples of the core plugins and then the community. So what is a plugin, right? It's kind of a combination of schematics and builders that can be packaged and published to NPM that are made available to NX workspaces. So that's kind of a mouthful, but like we were talking about Fabian's, his is actually more schematics, right? And so it'll go through and do some migrations in the code to move over Protractor test to Cypress test, for example. And so that would be an example. A builder would be our, Express. We have, Express builder that will run like a local serve of the Express server. And so, in Angular, you have the builder. So like anytime you do ngServe or ngTest, those are using builders, right? Schematics would be to generate a module or component or service. And kind of what makes an NX plugin a little different than just a standard, Angular type thing is it's not Angular specific. It works with any type of framework that's JavaScript based or TypeScript based. And so that's where this is cool, because there's, in React, you have code mods, which, kind of would be similar to schematics, but that's really about it, other than I know of. And so we're kind of bringing this really cool idea of schematics and builders, that was in Angular, and expanding it for anybody to use. And so then the other thing that's kind of different is they typically interact with our NX JSON and workspace or Angular JSON files. And so, the NX JSON is where you put kind of the NX metadata that exists for an NX workspace, like the scope and the tags and those kinds of things. And so you can interact with those pretty easily with some built-in helper methods when you build an NX plugin. So like I said, what is an NX plugin? Well, first part is schematics. It's a set of instructions to modify a workspace, to add new files or technologies. You can generate apps, components, services. You can migrate existing code to newer patterns. Another thing you can do is you can also extend like existing schematics that are out there. Maybe, a schematic does something you want, but you want to take it a step further and do one more little custom thing to that file that's generated, for example. Well, you can use maybe an existing React generate component schematic and then just add on your little bit to it and release your own. So they're definitely composable. And then builders are just executing commands against files in a workspace. So, build, serve, test, lint. These are cool in that you can schedule them and chain them to have, multiple builders run it, in order or parallel to each other. And so if there's something you're always doing over and over in your project, maybe you want to build a builder that kind of puts those together into a single one. And so, that's what an NX plugin is. How would you discover them? Well, we showed you just a minute ago our new community plugin browser. that you can go to. John, John cranked that out pretty quick, and I think it's pretty sharp, and I like it a lot. We definitely have future plans to enhance it, maybe with searching capabilities and maybe some concept of tagging so we can kind of categorize these plugins. But for now, we're just kind of getting started and open to feedback from the community on improving that. We also have the NX list command. So if you're within an NX workspace, you can actually run NX list, and it will show you, first of all, it'll show you like the installed plugins, and then it'll show you the available plugins. And so it'll go out and make a request to our community plugins and show those listed right there in your workspace. And then you can go ahead and do a yarn add or an npm install to get those right into your project. So that's pretty cool. So I mean, that's an incentive if you're out there and you've built an NX plugin, and you might say, why would I want to go through the process of getting it through the pull request for NX and have it listed here? Well, then you can kind of get visibility for your plugin so others can find it and discover it, which is really cool. So that's really kind of an overview. I mean, we didn't really go through how to, what is a schematic, what is a builder in too much depth, because those have been covered in other talks and concepts, but really wanted to focus.
See it.
Yeah, exactly.
We want you to show us.
Yeah, well, let's do it.
You did the right thing.
I think showing is sometimes better than talking, so it's easier to pick things up when you see by example. Yeah, show me the money. So let me, I'm going to hand it over to John and let him kind of share his screen. And any questions before we dive into that?
I don't think so.
Nope.
I haven't seen questions. I've seen everybody saying hello. And Wick was happy that he wasn't the only .NET person out there, but I don't think we have questions yet. We're just excited.
Cool.
I think everybody speaks with me when I say show it to us.
All right. So we're going to build a plugin pretty much. What we're going to build today is a Svelte plugin. Pretty much it's going to be pretty simple. It's not going to do anything crazy. It's just going to take a Svelte template file and just output the JS and all that stuff. Usually people would, if you're building a plugin, you would provide the whole thing or actually serve it and deploy it, or not deploy it, build it and just compile everything together. But for just a quick run through, we're just going to show how to use existing tools in like a plugin so that we could provide that support. So to get started with like a NX plugin, you could use npx and then create NX plugin with whatever name you want here. So we're going to just put like community or something. Whoops, community, and then it would be a plugin name. When we do this, it's going to create a whole thing. It's going to do npm install and all that stuff, but I'm not going to run it because I already have it done, and I don't want to.
Hey, will you make your plugin name ngHouston for fun?
I can.
Is it too late?
Yeah.
Well, or you can do that as the org name if you want.
Yeah.
So the first argument here would be the organization name, and the second one would be the plugin name and all that stuff.
Because I was thinking that the plugin name, I'm glad I said that, because I thought that the plugin name was actually going to be replaced with ngHouston, but the plugin name needs to say, and then if you follow that with what you're going to call your plugin.
Yeah. So this should be
ngHouston,
and this one would be.
Yeah, what I was going to say is what this is kind of doing is it's almost Inception, right? We're creating an NX workspace to create a plugin to use in another NX workspace. So we get all the best world of NX workspaces and the monorepo concepts, when we use this command. And so kind of a good pattern I'd see is if folks in the community are building these plugins, if they have any inkling that they might want to build more than one, go ahead and, set up an org in a community repo, and then you'll generate additional libs within this. For each of your plugins. I've seen I think Devin is doing that with his NXtend repo as well. I think he's already working on another plugin, and so he can just use his existing repo that this created to continue.
Yep. Yeah, so this would pretty much set up the whole workspace for you. So I already have it set up with the Svelte stuff. So we're just going to continue on with the workspace. So imagine npm installed, everything was good, and we have the node modules and everything. This is the output that will happen pretty much. So by default, when we create a plugin with the NX or create NX plugin, we're going to have an E2E app and then the actual lib, which is your plugin. So with that, let's start making this work with Svelte pretty much, right? So first thing we probably want to do is in this Svelte plugin lib, we'll probably want to add Svelte as a peer dependency. So when some people, install your plugin, they get the dependencies that they need. And then I think it is that one. So we got that going there. We're gonna have to install it on our workspace so we could get the IntelliSense and all that stuff. So we could just do that quickly. And then,
yep.
So we got that going in there, and pretty much all that stuff in there. So we got Svelte in here, and now we got all the IntelliSense and all that stuff that we need to actually create the plugin for. So usually when people create a plugin, you have to think, what do you need as part of inputs that actually are used for building or compiling whatever. So for the Svelte one on the compiler API, it will need pretty much an input file and a dist. So we're going to have to add an input parameter, input parameters for main file and the dist. So to do that, we go into the schema.json in the builders. So this one will actually be used when we compile stuff, because that's what the builder will do. It will manipulate the code that we have. So we need to have a main file here. You go main file. And we need to give it a type and all that stuff. Type is a string. Make sure that is pretty. Usually you want to put like a description in here as well, but we'll skip that for now. And then we need a dist entry or a dist input. This one will be string as well.
Right, because our Svelte plugin is going to do two things, right? It's going to generate the Svelte component, and then we want to compile and output it somewhere using the Svelte compiler. So that's what John is walking us through.
Yep. So we added to the JSON file here. But to get IntelliSense in some things when we're actually creating our plugin, we have to add the same properties here. And this one is automatically generated when you create the plugin. So this will be imported into the actual builder.ts here from right here. So the options will come through. So by default, the builders essentially just have an output saying that the builder just ran. There's nothing much to it as a default, but we're going to modify this so that we could actually compile something. So the first thing we should do is probably import the compile function from Svelte compiler. So now we got this. We want to run it into the run builder function here. So let's go create a new function compile Svelte. We're going to need the options because we need to have the main file, the input, and then the output for the dist. So to do that, builders themselves are observables that are chained together. So each step we need to have a builder output. Whoops, builder output with an observable. So to do that, we're just going to do return new observable, and then we have a subscriber, and then that satisfies that constraint there. So inside this observable, we're going to actually call the compile function and output it, and then just return a success message. So let's wrap this in a try catch error, just to make sure we handle all those errors and all that. Subscriber dot error success false. Just put that there for cleanup stuff. So let us go and call the compiler. So we go and call compile, and then you can see that the compile from Svelte requires the source, and that one will be the option.main file. And when the result of this comes back, is going to return a JS file, CSS and AC and all that stuff. But what we really want is just a JS file. So now we want to output it. With plugins themselves, we could use some utility functions that are provided by the NX workspace and all that stuff. So there is a function called create directory from the Nrwl workspace, and that was imported right there. And we're just going to call it to create the dist, just so that it doesn't error out or whatever else. After that, we're going to do write file sync. This one's just going to come from FS. It's just a simple writing a file out. And we're going to output it to the options.dist, and then just output.js. File, results.js.code. Option. So after we do that, when everything ran properly, we could just say subscriber.next success equals true. Oops. And that pretty much is how we compile an output or an input file or with Svelte, and just output it to the directory with options that we provided.
Very beautiful.
Yeah.
It's not that easy to talk and type at the same time. John, I just want you to know you're doing a beautiful job.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, he is.
Don't let it go to your head.
Now I'm going to
we have
collapse.
a really good question in the, do you have time for a question thrown in?
Yeah.
So James wanted to know, as build output, he wants unique package locked JSONs for each app and lib instead of using the root package. So is that a plugin? Is that a build time script? How would you handle that?
A unique package.json file for app lib.
So when he's doing build output, he wants unique package. So he wants every app and lib to have their own package lock file instead of having just one in the root. His backend app does not need front-end app dependencies.
Oh, I see.
Is that an obscure offline question?
Yeah, I think that I don't know if that's really related to the plugins themselves. That's more like, I guess, in a workspace.
James, you got to send John a DM on Twitter with that question.
Yeah, I think we have a Slack community channel. We could talk about it there.
Yeah, there is a Nrwl community started kind of Nrwl NX Slack community that we can send you to share with everyone that folks can join. It's getting pretty big. I think we're almost at 200 people there now. So
we actually have some more community stuff coming in the pipeline that we're going to have out. Where I don't think it's ready yet, but we're going to have some community resources too that I've been talking to Nrwl about. There's a lot going on.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Yeah.
All right. Let's continue on with this one then. So we created the function that basically compiles with Svelte. Now we pretty much need to call it, right? So there's some boilerplate here that just is simple stuff. So now we're just going to just go compile Svelte and then pass the options. Oops. And then that's our builder. So to just summarize what the builder is doing, the builder we called, it'll return an observable, and inside the observable, it will pretty much call the compile function from Svelte, create directories, and output success if everything is good. So if something happened, if like you didn't have permission for your file system or whatnot, then we catch it with that catch error. All right. So after that, we go on to the actual schematic. So the schematic, again, are a set of like blueprints and instructions to modify a file system and all that stuff, or generate components and whatever else you need to do. So itself, we want to make sure that the template that gets outputted is a Svelte file. So we're just going to change this to index.svelte.template. And inside here, we could actually add like an actual Svelte component. It's going to be pretty much simple. So for this one, I'm not going to go into the nitty gritty of Svelte, but I'm just going to try to get this in there. Magic. So this pretty much is taking a property that we're going to provide and just automatically putting it into the template when we run the generate component or generate schematic, sorry. So that one is that. So the schematics themselves also have a schema.json that will have pretty much default options in here. So we have name, tags, and directories. The tags and directory is unique to plugins because the tags or you could use it to add tags to the nx.json to pretty much scope out different libraries or apps that are generated. And directory is just a helper function, or helpers to sort of sort your projects in different directories. And then we just have the name.
For when you're getting to enterprise, because I know I went Philip Fulcher's in our chat, and I worked with Philip on a project that was this is how it happens. It starts out, it's just a little project, and then it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and it scales, and it gets very confusing. And that's really a problem that I think a lot of people had, that they didn't start out with. It happens always. It's like hindsight's 2020, right? So I think for those of us who, like, none of us started out as architects. We just accidentally stumbled into it, right?
Yeah,
pretty much. But that's always the advice that we give everybody is, like, you really want to be very, very organized from the beginning. And so tags and directories, can you just, I don't want to interrupt you again and like go off, but I want you to just give them for anyone who's not an architect, right? What kind of things would you use those tags or directories for?
Yeah, for sure. So for tags themselves in NX Workspace, you could basically organize different libraries and stuff. And so one example of a tag will be like you could scope it to just UI. So you could say this library will only be for UI stuff. So if you tag something with UI, and then you have another project that or another component or project that you generated, and you tagged it with backend or something, you could modify the TS config and basically disallow UI code from being imported into the backend code, and the tags help organize that. So it scopes out things so that we get warnings if you try to use it improperly. I'm not. It's very powerful, and I think there's a couple of videos on the nx.dev site to go into more of how tags work and all that, and pretty much utilizing the full power of NX and just making sure that everything is clean and separate. So there's a lot to it. But yeah, so to make it easy for people to integrate with NX, we provide that tags functionality. So continue on with the Svelte plugin. I'm going to take out this defaults. Actually, you know what? I'll leave that in just for fun. So we're not going to really change anything in here. We're going to leave everything default there. It's the same thing in the d.ts file so that we can get that IntelliSense. So now in the schematic.ts file, this is where all the juicy bits are. There, we provide a way to normalize the options that are provided by the schematic, so that we get like helper properties here. So we automatically help you with the project root. We parse the tags out so that you get tags as an array. We get directories and all that stuff, and that just it. If you want to normalize more options, you could add them in here. There's also the add files. This is pretty much getting the template that we have in here. So file source, and it's just going to read everything inside the files folder and just output it with template options. And then the meat of it, to make it really an NX plugin, is pretty much updating the workspace. So the update workspace is a function that is provided by the Nrwl workspace package. And it basically allows us to add new projects to an angular.json or a workspace.json file. So in here, it's pretty much adding a new project that we're going to create with the Svelte, and add some options in here. It also adds the build target, so that we can actually call the builder. And this is the builder that we just modified here. So we'll go Svelte build and all that stuff. But we need to add some more stuff in here. Since we just added 2 arguments or 2 properties for the builder, the main file and the disk, we're going to have to add them in here. So in here, we will call normalize options dots. Not normalize options. That's D. My bad. Normalize options dot project root, so we could get it in that proper directory. And then we're going to go index.svelte. And this is pretty much the same file here. So when we generate the component and all that stuff, it will remove the template extension and just leave it with the index.svelte. So we're going to automatically include that. And then we need a dist. So the dist will be dist libs and then normalized options dot project name. So with NX itself, everything is when we build stuff, we output it to either the libs or the apps folder. By default, a project type for a schematic is a library, but we could change it to an app, and it just helps with some outputting to the file system and all that stuff. So when we have this as a library, when we generate the Svelte component, it'll be put into the libs folder of a NX workspace. And if you change it to application, it'll be put into the apps folder. So since it's a library, we're going to just...
John, can I stop you for 1 second? Because there was something that that I heard from Justin, that he heard from Victor, that was really helpful for me in a conversation that Philip and I were having this conversation a while back, talking about apps versus libs, because it can kind of be confusing. They kind of start to, sometimes when things get crazy, they almost start to get synonymous.
Yeah.
But if you know Victor Savkin, he is very clear on which is which and what's the difference. And can you just fill us in on that just real briefly?
Yeah. So for apps themselves, they're usually full applications that will be deployed and built upon. Libs are like separating different pieces of the app so that they could be used in multiple places. One example would be if you have a shared components library in, let's say, an Angular app. You want to build those components in libs so that they could be tested separately and pretty much self-contained. It's also good to have them separate like that, so that when you actually use the affected commands in NX, if you just build or just change one lib, it will run the affected command on that lib and whatever dependencies you have. And if you don't have it separately and you have all these unit tests together, then you're going to pretty much run everything together. So it's a good way to separate components and separate pieces of logic so that they could be run independently and in testing and building.
And you want those apps, if possible, to be as lean as you can? Because I know
Yeah.
Victor had said that you really want to put all your business logic into libs as much as possible and keep the
Yep.
apps as wrappers. So the app would handle all of your like environment and configuration and stuff like that. But most of the meat of the actual business logic should be in a lib, if possible.
Yeah. Yeah, because it'll be easier to test and it'll be quicker for CIs and all that stuff. So if you have a big chunk of business logic, you don't want it to be running every time somebody changes something else that's not related, right? So if you separate those out, it will only be run if you actually change it, or only test it if you actually change it.
Right.
Right.
I do a lot of consulting, so I see some people making little mistakes here and there. So I'm always like, oh, tell them this. I'm going to go back on mute and let you continue.
All right. So for this one, it's just going to output it to a lib directory. And then that's it for the target. So the next one here that is unique to NX plugin is pretty much adding the project that we just created to the NX JSON. So the NX JSON is what will read the tags and all that stuff and prioritize dependencies and implicit dependencies and all that. I don't think I'll get too much into that right now, but I'll show it once we generate an application. So, so that's the schematic. All we have to really do in this one was just change 2 lines here so that our builder had the proper arguments. Next, something else I want to change is the schematic itself. So by default, when we create a plugin with the NX plugin, it will take the plugin name that you provided and put it in the schematic. So to run it, we'll pretty much go like nxg at community.svelte. And then to change this, I want to make this a component. So I'm just going to rename this to component so that when we run it, we could actually call it component, right? And that's all we're going to do here. We can leave everything else the default so that I could know where to read the JSON file and the schematic TS and all that. So let's try to run this. Let's see how well it works and all that stuff. So we're going to go to the E2E folder and look at the svelte.test file that's generated here. So what this will do is pretty much create a temporary directory inside your workspace here on the file system and run your plugin. So by default, we have tests to make sure the directory works, and we have tests to make sure the tags are updated and all that stuff, and just to make sure it ran properly. Since we kind of changed the builder, we're gonna remove this a bit so that it will run. And just to make it quicker, I'm gonna delete those for now. So in here, we have commands that are, or we have functions that are provided by the NX testing library that will run the commands inside the temporary directory that gets generated through ensure NX project. I'm going to skip that for now, so just so that we could just generate the temporary directory and just go through whatever is generated there. So to run that, we could just go yarn nx e2e svelte e2e. So when we run the E2Es, it will compile your library, put into its dist folder here. Sorry, not your library, your plugin. And then copy it to a temp folder here, and then add it to the node modules in here. So if we actually change directories to the temp, nx, E2Es, and proj, so we go cd temp. Now we're in this folder, and now we could actually use our component or our plugin that we built. So we could go nx generate at community svelte component, and then I'm just going to put it as ngHouston. Oh, did I not do something right?
Yeah, you did not save it, I think.
I didn't save it?
Save, yeah, save your collection.
Yeah.
I was going to say, you can't go through the entire presentation that perfect, or we're just going to think you're faking something. You have to mess up something for believability, John. You can't be that smooth in real life. I mean, maybe you can. I don't know. You could be that cool.
Almost. I thought I had autosave. That's my fault.
I mean, it's been pretty good. This has been pretty cool so far. I was like, that's a lot of live coding without a single typo. So.
Almost. Oh, so a cached output. Let me just turn off the caching for.
This is something.
This is something
features are working against us.
Yeah, I really needed to redo everything. So
you got this. You're doing great.
So we're gonna.
Devin's over there talking about how great Ionic is, and I'm wondering if Mike Hardington bribed him to say that.
Yeah, Mike does that. I think that's an excellent theory.
I think you're right. Sorry, all right, John, go ahead.
Let's go back then. So everything is built again, and let us go and create it. So we have the same command, add community, svelte component, ngHouston. So fingers crossed, and then there we go. So if we actually look into...
Did that really say done in 0.97 seconds?
Yes.
Look at that.
So it generated the template file.
That's like NX Cloud fast.
So if we go in here, we can see that the name of a component was ngHouston. It pretty much cleaned it up so that it's I forget the term of this. Hyphenated? Yeah, that's it. And it compiles it provides the template with ngHouston and all that stuff in here. So going back to what the schematic was doing, it added it to the workspace.json. So now we have the project ngHouston here, and we have different architects or run commands that we could execute. So by default, we had that build command that we just built, and we added the two files or added the two arguments that we needed for the builder to run properly. And that's pretty much it for here. Everything else is default. The other one was the nx.json file. So in here, we added ngHouston to the projects itself. And then if we added the tags, you add the tags and all that stuff as well. So this allows it for NX workspaces to just to determine the dependency graph and just tags and all that stuff for linting. So now we could actually go and run our generated component. So if we go yarn nx build ngHouston, we should get a dist with the output generated by svelte.
Yep. And
then that is that for the builder, right? So again, we take the index of svelte file. We pass it to we give options or arguments in the workspace.json. So we say, okay, this is the main file, pass it to the compiler, and the compiler will basically output it. Get rid of whatever it needs and just output it. And like I said in the beginning, usually if you want to provide something that's useful, you probably want this to actually run. Right now, this won't run, but it compiles with the svelte compiler. And then that's it for the plugin. So we pretty much built a plugin from scratch to output svelte compiled templates. So let's say you clean it up a bit and you actually make it useful for people where it's actually runnable and all that stuff. Now you want to publish it. And to publish it, you build it and you basically publish the folder that's there. So let's go back up to the roots of our project, and we can just go npm publish, and then dist svelte, dist libs svelte. And then there we go. We published it now.
So our NX community or NX create NX plugin schematic ran and created this in such a way that it'll actually build a publishable lib for us.
Yes.
We didn't have to worry about any of that. Trying to figure out what package to use or whatever. I mean, it just came baked in by default, which is pretty cool. So
yeah.
And then you would go to a pull request if you wanted to share it with the community beyond that.
So yeah, that's what I'm going to talk about next. So we have it published, and now we want to put it. We want to create a pull request, or we want to add it to the community list that's provided by NX in the browser, and when you type NX list. So do that. We're just going to jump into an NX repo, and inside the NX repo, you probably want to go checkout branch, include my plugin. And you're going to want to modify the community approved plugins.json here and just follow the examples that are there already. So now we have community svelte plugin, NX plugin to compile svelte templates. And then for this one, I don't remember the GitHub repo. We're just going to do svelte, yes. But we do that. Now we're going to have to commit it. So we'll go git commit chore repo add svelte plugin. Then that will add the commit, and then we could just do yarn. Oh wait, we have to push this up to your repo. So we'll go push origin include my plugin. We'll do some checks here. Hopefully it's quick. If not, let me just do no verify.
We have a we have a page on our site on the next dev that walks through this whole process as well. So
I just want to know who reviews them when they come in. Like if we're gonna troll Nrwl, who gets stuck with that? I'm just
me
curious.
and John for the most part.
Yeah, for now.
Asking for a friend, Wes.
And I mean, we'll pull them down too, and try to run them so it's not like everything gets through, but we do try to do a little bit of verification that they run. So.
Yep.
Oh man, it's Bonnie again.
Yeah. We also offer some suggestions to improve it so that it's just so that it's polished a little bit more. So if I see one from Bonnie, I'll just keep asking for more polish. All right. So on the NX repo itself, we have a command that just it helps you create the pull request on the browser and all that, or open up GitHub and all that. So we're just going to go yarn submit plugin, and this will open up the browser. You can't see my browser right now, but it opened it up with a bunch of fun stuff. You're going to have to try it yourself to see what's included there. And then that is it. So after that, somebody from NX is going to look at it, most likely me or Wes, sorry. My mouth is getting dry.
You're doing great.
And then that is it. After that it's merged. Then we get it on the NX list command, and then we get it on the nx.dev community browser.
Yep.
And that is creating the plugin from start to finish.
Yep.
That's amazing. I love it. I just want to yay.
That was very cool.
Jonathan, I don't know how many times you've been live on YouTube, coding on YouTube, but it seems to me like you've done this many times before. And if you haven't, then you sure fooled us because you were very smooth. Yeah. So I just want to give you
very
props for that.
Yeah.
It was very, very professional.
So,
thank you.
And I
have a
really want to
question.
thank you both for coming and teaching us cool stuff and for making cool stuff for the community. I love, I mean, I know that Nrwl has a lot of expert consulting and they do a lot of, I really love that because I've done that as well, go into companies. It's great because when you do training and you're actually working side by side with the developers, rather than trying to teach them everything in a workshop, you just go focus on what they specifically need for their own. And it's just so great. It's just such a great way to work. And I know that Nrwl does that, but that's not all they do because they're putting out all this great stuff in the community that's free, that everybody can use. And that's just, I just love that. There's like so much good stuff. And I always say like, I don't promote Nrwl because I'm friends with them. I mean, I am friends with most of the people that work at Nrwl, but that's not why. It's because it's just all this cool stuff that we have to use that even if I didn't know you guys, I still would be like, I love NX, right? So so I really appreciate it. And I would really like just if you go, I know you guys have stand-ups and I know if you could go back and tell all of the Nrwl friends, and we actually have a couple of Nrwl engineers in here, that we would like to put in a request for somebody to come and do a live demo of this whole NX Cloud thing. Because I know there's the NX Cloud, right? And I know that I've been hearing that the NX Cloud is wicked fast. And so you can serve your stuff very quickly. But as in just the same thing with the plugins, like we want to see it. Yeah. So if you guys have anyone, and I know, I mean, Zach DeRose has not been on the show in forever, and Philip Fulcher's been on the show, but we love Philip Fulcher. We always, Brandon hasn't been on the show since like, I don't even know when. And Yuri Strumploner, I think, has never been on the show. So just if anyone would like to volunteer to come on and show us the cloud, I want to see it. I want to see it.
Absolutely. Yeah. We'll get somebody on here to do it for sure.
Yep. Or, I mean, you're welcome back. We love you, Wes. We love you too now, John. So you too always, I hope you'll come back soon and often and see us. And anytime you guys have cool stuff to show us, you should always come here.
Cool. Yeah, we love coming. Yeah, it's always fun. So thanks for having us.
Do we have time for 2 questions? I have 2 questions if we have time.
Yeah. Do if they do.
Yep.
All right, cool. So one is plugin related. Could you build plugins to potentially take the place of gulp tasks?
To take the place of
when you're building things, like gulp, like building specific SAS files into CSS for specific, they get loaded based on condition. Would this be a good paradigm for that, or sticking with gulp would be better? I don't know.
Well, NX itself provides this schematic called run commands, where you basically could create your own builder without having to do a whole plugin. So you could execute steps at a time.
Cool.
If you want to share it with everybody, and it's something that's common, where it's a pain in the butt for everybody to kind of do themselves, then it's a perfect example for an NX plugin where you provide the builder for someone, and then it does all those steps automatically for them. So there's multiple ways to do that.
So if it's really specific to your use case, just the run commands. But if you think it could solve a problem, then do a plugin. All right, cool. Cool. Now I have a generic NX question, architecture question that bothers me.
Okay.
Because I don't know the answer to. When you're using an NX workspace and you're using React or Angular or whatever as your front end, but then you're using something like .NET or Ruby or Python as the back end, is there any kind of recommended way to do that in an NX workspace?
It's you can still add your backend code into the monorepo paradigm here. Right now, there isn't any support to allow NX to know about like Ruby and all that stuff. And it's perfect for a plugin if somebody wants to make that. But you could have it in the same monorepo, but you could probably just use the run command builder to start your Ruby or your Java or your .NET, and then just start your front end at the same time.
Okay. Right? Yeah. So just a folder in the monorepo up in the apps, and then you deal with it from there.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
All right. Any questions, Jeffrey?
Thanks.
Nope, I had almost the same question because I thought there was something with Java and NX10 maybe. I think I've read it somewhere.
I think we have an example that has Java in it. and that pretty much could be the base for all those back-end technologies that aren't really, Node, I guess.
Yeah. So basically,
Sorry, say it again.
I had the same question as Brad, basically.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it wasn't a
Good
dumb
job,
question.
Brad. That
You always
happened
have
the
that
other
thing.
day.
Oh, this is a dumb question. Everybody knows the answer to this.
That happened to me last week. I was typing a response to something that somebody posted, and then as soon as I hit enter, Jeffrey posted the same thing I posted like 10 seconds before I did. I was like, oh man, Jeffrey. All right, well, we're at the top of the hour, and that was such an amazing show. It was really great to have you, and I hope that you come back soon and often. Jeffrey, Brad, you guys too, thank you so much for being on the show, and we'll see you guys soon.
Thank
you
you.
All
so
right.
much.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for having us.